Hi everybody, it's Kevin at Bear Creek Honey. Welcome to the winter solstice, December 21st, 2018. I know I've done some videos on beehive insulation and whatnot over the last month, but I just kind of want to hammer home and reiterate a little bit about beehive insulation and in one topic in general. And that is pillow boards or material used to wick moisture away from the top of a beehive. I cannot imagine why anybody would want to. I just had a bee take off. It's like 20 degrees outside and windy. That's really weird. I would not. I don't understand why anybody would want to have material on the top of their hive to keep moisture inside their hive, and that is exactly what pillow boards and these vivaldyiboards with burlap or these containers with wood chips. That's what these things do. They wick the moisture, hold the moisture in. You get moisture condensating on the top of your board, and it creates moisture and mold on the lid of your hive. And none of that can be good for the bees. Now, I am not the foremost expert on beekeeping, nor on winterizing bees. But what I am sort of an expert in for my profession is insulation and ventilation. Now in the wild, I mean, a bee houses itself, let's say, in a trunk of a tree. The trunk of a tree has, you got to figure, they're in the hollowed out portion in a trunk of a tree. The hive is only so big. Doesn't have an upper entrance, just has an entrance. But the top is not square. It's also highly insulated because the tree goes up, it's all full of solid wood. So that's all insulation if you think about it that way. It's also dome shaped. And their combs kind of start off at the top and kind of go around and then hang down in different sheets depending on the size of the cavity. So any moisture that might condensate goes down the sides of the walls of the hollowed out log and down along the side, and it's no big deal for the bees, and it will vent out whatever spot that they have. Now in a hive, obviously, in our Langstroth hives, they're square. Not to mention, we have only 3/4 of an inch of wood on the sides, and if you're lucky, 3/4 of an inch on top. But in most cases, these hive producers are making them out of 1/2 inch plywood, which doesn't offer literally any insulation. And as I've talked to in my earlier beekeeping videos, the cold shock between your lid and your beehive that's 90 degrees in the core and expelling moisture, not a ton of moisture, but moisture as it were. Your honey's probably 17 or 18% moisture as it is, but is expelling moisture, and the warm air striking this cold surface will produce condensation. Now if you got a pillow box, that condensation drips down, drips into that material, and holds that moisture in your box. Why in the world would you want to do that? I am dead serious. It defies all logic to me as to why you want to do that. When you're in your house, if you look up, you're not holding moisture in your insulation, are you? Usually you have some drywall, you have a vapor barrier, and then you have your insulation on top of that for your ceiling, and your attic is totally vented, wicking out any kind of moisture that might wick up through. The only time you have condensation might be on your windows, where there is no insulation, and that's the cold surface. And I've shown this on the video before. But again, I just can't imagine why anybody would want to hold the moisture in your hive. If you put a solid foam of insulation, which has zero ability to soak in any moisture, all of the moist air, all of the moist air coming up from the hive is not striking a cold surface at all. The insulation is 1.5 inches thick. Now, if you only use 1/2 inch, that can still get cold. Let me tell you, especially up here in northern Wisconsin, that ain't a lot. But if you have 1.5 inches, you know, by the time it strikes that insulation, it's not that. Not to mention the hive itself is keeping that insulation a little bit warm, but it's not striking that. So it goes up, and now it's looking for an exit, and that's, you have your upper entrance, and that's your exit. Now it blows out, and you've wicked out moisture from your hive. All of it. You have no, maybe some moisture is striking the sides of the hive. But that's not anywhere near the big deal of it striking a cold surface on the cold surface on the top of the hive. And so today, what I wanted to do was just show and prove to you. Now it's been getting up to close to 40 degrees at night here for the last week and a half, and then dropping down to about 25 degrees at night. Today is the coldest day it's been in a week and a half, and it's probably somewhere around 21 degrees, somewhere around there, and it's a little windy, and I don't like cracking my hive, but for demonstration purposes only, I'm going to show you what the lid of my hive looks like, what the top of my hive looks like beneath the insulation, just to show you that there is no moisture on top of my hives at all. They're dry as a bone, and that's exactly what you're after. There is no need for these fancy boxes with the burlap or the pillows or the whatever, wicking this material and holding the moisture. I've been watching video after video, not video after video, but comment after comment on beekeeping forums about people talking about, I lifted the lid to check on the food, and the burlap was wet, or the hive was completely soaked. Other people have, we're talking about, one of my hives died, blah blah blah, and they don't know why, and they didn't figure out why. And then I just asked them, I'm like, what type of insulation did you have on the top? Well, I had a pillow board, or I had a vivaldyiboard, or burlap, or I had wood chips, or whatever, and that might actually be aiding in why their colony already in December has collapsed and died. I'm not saying that's the answer, but that's one of the answers that I'm coming up with. So real quickly, let's crack this hive open and take a look. I don't want to stir them too much, but I just want to get my point across to everybody that a material that soaks in moisture is just not your best option for wintering your hives, at least here in the north. I haven't cracked this open since I started this. Let's drop this down a little bit. Oh, let's take a look. That's just propolis. This is dry as a bone, obviously, on the lid. This is the 1.5 inch insulation, and we're going to just try this up a little bit. Very loud, but look at that. All the bees are up at the top. There is nothing, no moisture whatsoever on the top of this hive. And I didn't want to disturb them, but there you go. Now I've got a few coming out, and they're a little pissed off, obviously. Uh, but that, as they say, is that. Again, they're if they were cold, uh, if they were cold, they wouldn't be at the top. If they were wet, they wouldn't be at the top. Um, so this is actually a good thing for the bees to maintain, be dry, stay warm, or stay well, at least semi-warm at the top of the hive. You know, this is a double hive, and just because they're at the top of the hive does not mean that they're out of food already. It just means that this is the warmest part of the hive. Why wouldn't we want to be up here? So anyways, I just wanted to prove that to you. I don't want to get stung this time of the year by any bees. And so I hope that helped prove to you that this is a way to keep your hives dry and keep them alive for the winter. Very, very healthy. You could see that at the top of that hive. So anyways, I hope that helps dispel not the myths, but the reasons that you might have heard for using those moisture boards. They are absolutely, positively not needed, nor a really good idea in this beekeeper's estimation. You know, everybody does it their own way, and so to each their own. But anyways, till next time, happy beekeeping.